45's aim of killing Iranian General was to start a war. 45 said Friday, 45 said Friday he ordered the killing of a top Iranian general to stop a war, not start one. Technically, he started one, he didn't stop it. But in the tense aftermath, the Pentagon braced for retaliation by sending more troops to the Middle East. Democrats complained that 45 hadn't consulted Congress, and some worried that the strike made war more likely, which it did. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo argued that the U.S. case with allies in the Middle East and beyond, asserting that Friday's drone strike killing General Qasem Soleimani was a necessary act of self-defense, and it really wasn't, because they technically didn't have any evidence of him doing all this shit. Really, he asserted that Soleimani was plotting a series of attacks that endangered many American troops and officials across the Middle East. No proof of it whatsoever, because I couldn't find any proof that he was planning this shit. The ramifications of 45's decision to kill Soleimani were still coming into focus on Friday. They could include an end to the U.S. military partnership with Iraq in fighting the Islamic State extremist group. Some Iraqi politicians called the attack, which also killed an Iraqi general, a violation of Iraqi sovereignty, and questioned whether U.S. forces should be expelled. The U.S. has about 52,000 troops in Iraq, mostly to train and advise Iraqi forces fighting ISIS. In brief remarks to the nation, 45 said the Iranian general had been plotting imminent and sinister attacks, which they had no proof. At the Pentagon, Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said the U.S. had compelling, clear, ambiguous intelligence of Soleimani plotting violent acts, and they couldn't prove any evidence when asked about it. Oh, by the way, it might still happen, Milley said, referring to the planned attacks. 45 called Soleimani a ruthless figure who made the death of innocent people his sick passion. We take comfort in knowing that his reign of terror is over, and 45 is still causing a reign of terror that isn't over yet until the end of this year. The squatter warned Iran against retaliating. He said the U.S. military has Iranian targets fully identified for counter-retaliation. The U.S. has a wide range of offensive and defensive forces in the Gulf area within range of Iran. Asked about possible retaliation, Milley told reporters, is there a risk? You're damn right there's a risk. He added, there is a range of possible futures here, and the ball is in the Iranian court. As Iran warned of harsh reprisals, the U.S. Homeland Security Department watched for trouble brewing on the domestic front and reported no specific credible threats in the first hours after the American attack in Baghdad, said the department's acting secretary, Chad Wolf. Senior State Department officials in a briefing for reporters said the drone strike near the Baghdad International Airport was based on intelligence that suggested Soleimani was traveling in the area to put final touches on plans for attacks that would have hit U.S. diplomats, which they couldn't find any evidence to prove that, troop and American facilities in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and elsewhere in the Middle East. The officials who spoke on condition of anonymity under State Department ground rules would not be more specific about the intelligence, but said it clearly called for a decisive U.S. response. When they wouldn't go into specific details, that means they didn't have any evidence to prove this. Democrats in Congress questioned the administration approach while making clear that they don't regret Soleimani's demise. Senator Mark Warner, a Virginia Democrat, noted that Pompeo said the administration wants to de-escalate tensions with Iran. I think the jury's out on that, Warner said. I hope they're successful in that. I think it would have brought in more congressional leaders and allies to help make that case ahead of time. Technically, our allies have turned against us, so they're not going to help us in this time of need. Representative Adam Schiff, a California Democrat, said he has not heard a satisfactory explanation for the timing of the U.S. attack. And the question is why the administration chose at this moment. Why is this administration made the decision to remove him from the battlefield, and other administrations, both parties decided that would escalate the risk, not reduce them, he said. Fears about the repercussions of killing Soleimani persisted through the administrations of President Bush, a dumbass, and President Barack Obama, a Democrat, according to officials who served under both. Soleimani, they calculated, was just as dangerous dead and murdered as he was alive and plotting against Americans. A decades-long U.S. nemesis, Iran holds a range of options for striking back, military or otherwise. Tens of thousands of American troops into the Persian Gulf area, including Iraq and Qatar, are within easy range of Iranian missiles, and Iran has the capability to act more clandestinely with cyber attacks or military proxy strikes on U.S. targets abroad. Last summer, following a string of intelligence indications that Iran was planning attacks on U.S. targets in the Gulf area. The Pentagon accelerated the deployment of an aircraft carrier to the region and deployed additional missile defenses. In all, about 14,000 additional U.S. troops were sent to the area over the summer and fall, but that did not deter Iran, which is feeling an extreme squeeze from U.S. sanctions that have all but shut off its oil exports. The final sequence of actions leading to the killing of Soleimani began in October with rocket attacks in Iraq that Washington blamed on Iran-supported Shiite militias. A December 27th rocket attack near Kirkuk killed an American contractor and wounded U.S. and Iraqi soldiers. The U.S. blamed an Iran-backed militia called Hezbollah, or whatever, or KH, which is an easier way to say it. And on December 29th, it bombed 5 KH-linked facilities. 2 days later, KH militiamen and their supporters stormed the U.S. embassy compound in Baghdad. An attack 45 cited as evidence that Soleimani deserved to be eliminated, which really wasn't evidence at all. The Iran's regime's aggression in the region, including the use of proxy fighters to destabilize its neighbors, must end, and it must end now, 45 said. 45's final pre-strike consultations were held behind the palm trees at his Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida, where the squatter has been sent 2 weeks largely out of sight before his impeachment trial in the Senate. And the days before the attack, 45 huddled with aides, including Pompeo and his national security advisor Robert O'Brien. After the Soleimani killing, Pompeo announced that he was placing the Iranian-backed Iraqi militia Al-Haq on the State Department's Foreign Terrorist Organizations blacklist, which blocks any assets the groups may have in U.S. jurisdiction and bars the Americans from providing it with material support. The Pentagon was largely silent on Friday on details of the drone strike and its aftermath. Officials announced the deployment of nearly 3,000 additional soldiers from the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to Kuwait as reinforcements. Separately, the 173rd Airborne Brigade, based in Italy, had been placed on alert for possible deployment of parts of the brigade to Lebanon to help defend the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. The additional troop deployments reflect concerns about potential Iranian retaliatory action, but they also run counter to 45's separated push to extract the United States from Middle East conflicts. He has repeatedly called for withdrawing from Syria and Afghanistan, but over the past year he has greatly increased U.S. troop totals in the Middle East. More broadly, some congressional Democrats and national security analysts question whether the 45 administration is prepared for Iranian retaliation and the prospect of political backlash in Iraq, where American troops are working with Iraqi forces in sometimes tense partnerships against the Islamic State extremist group. The Pentagon said it wants to sustain that work, but some Iraqi leaders said it might be time for U.S. troops to leave. And Baghdad Prime Minister Adel Mahdi condemned the American drone strike, which also killed an Iraqi general who was a deputy commander of the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, known as the Popular Mobilization Forces. Abdul Mahdi called the killings an aggression against Iraq, and an emergency session of Parliament was called for Sunday, and the Deputy Speaker, Hassan Kabi, said it would make decisions that put an end to the U.S. presence in Iraq. Ordering out American forces would heavily damage Washington's influence and make the U.S. troop presence in the neighboring Syria more tenuous, but Iraqi leadership is likely to be divided over such a step. The president over there called for the voice of reason and wisdom to dominate, keeping in mind Iraq's greater interest.